I'm like, I would pay.
That's why I'm super. I would actually love it. I could just not that
Otherwise, it's a sleepy drugs. Warm milk, hot chocolate. Right, just start right there, right? Cold. Get that window open, right? Cognitive behavioral therapy is the most effective for those with insomnia. Skull caps, right? Passiflora, lemon balm, catnip, California poppy. I was testing out California poppy, and the bottle, of course, said, to take 30 to 90 drops, and I did. Do this in time for the book. This says, no, you're going to get much better effect from the California poppy at a very low doses, like the low doses that I suggest for the other herbs. So just know that the California poppy just
That the next edition of the book will
right,
have that new
bring
information.
the dose down. Right, valerian root. I was with Stephen Foster, and he said, I just went to Mount Verde to teach them how to grow valerian. I said, what? He says 10% of the gross national land of insomniac world to grow, and we're importing all of their valerian. So they realized that they wouldn't have to spend so much money, this is not a wealthy country, if they would simply hire some. And went way up into the mountains and saw some villages. People living so marginally, you wonder, right? Women who walk a mile each way to a glacier to chip off ice, which is the only water they have. Mount Verde in the middle
country?
Yeah, it is a country. Mount Verde, it's a country. Right? It's I think it's near the Caspian, the Balkans, in that area of the world, right? So it's kind of way far east of Europe.
And then I have glaciers.
Susan, would you like to read a little bit more from your book now that we have another break between signings?
All right, let's read it back to you.
Okay. Whoa.
I'm going to read that I found incredibly interesting.
Susan's reading from her new book, Abundantly Well. We're here at Flower Power book signing just for another hour, so come on down.
Here we go, on 9th Street, East 9th Street here. When I originally wrote this book, and I had to say basically that placebo medicine works. And it's why we do double-blind studies, because the placebo often works as well as the drug. And so what medicine says is that means that some drugs don't work any better than the placebo. But I say, no, wait. If most of the time we're getting half of the people well with placebos and they don't have any side effects, why don't we do that first? Why don't we at least try a placebo first? And if it works, if we get half the people well with placebos, wow. We have half the people that we don't need to do anything further with. I think that's great. But there was not a lot of research. Now, what has happened in between, to me, is quite amazing because it touches my life personally. My book, my green book, Healing Wise, to which this is actually the companion volume, came out in, I think it was 1987. And that year, Ted Kapchuk's book, The Web That Has No Weaver, was also published. And those books are both still in print because they are real classics. Now, Ted brought acupuncture to the United States. He opened the Boston School of Acupuncture. He trained the first American acupuncturist. So Ted Kapchuk is Mr. Acupuncture. Over 10 years ago, Ted laid, and that's what I want the rest of my life studying, is placebo medical procedure. Yes, a placebo is wishful thinking and fervent hope. Yes, placebo medicine works. It works as well as drugs or surgery for some people, for some people. Recent research from clinical science, psychology, anthropology, biology, social economics, and neuroscience provides compelling evidence that placebo medicine is, quote, a genuine bio-psycho-social phenomenon that represents more than simply spontaneous remission, normal symptom fluctuation, or regression to the mean. Placebo medicine, thus, is distinct from symptoms subsiding without treatment, the inevitable trajectory of almost all ailments. And that is a quote from an MD. Neuroscientists Fabrizio Benedetti of Turin says that placebo medicine creates direct and real physiological responses in heart rate, blood pressure, and chemical activity in the brain. Placebos induce the brain to make pain relieving neurotransmitters somewhat similar to cannabis, some somewhat similar to opium. Placebos activate and increase the amount of endorphins and dopamine, which is related to emotional pleasure and rewards, even in the brains of Parkinson's patients. Placebos activate specific, quantifiable, relevant electrical and metabolic activity in the prefrontal cortex, the anterior insula, the rostral and anterior cingulate cortex, and the amygdala. The placebo effect extends to real medicines and actual treatments. A pain relieving drug labeled as such worked 50% better than the same drug labeled placebo. What do we believe in? Ted Kapchuk, acupuncturist and associate professor at Harvard Medical School program in placebo studies and therapeutic encounters, has shown that every part of our experience is important in placebo medicine. The size, shape, and color of the treatment, the sounds, smells, and sights of the treatment venue, the belief, experiences, and mood of the practitioner, the amount of attention given to the patient, the contextual and environmental cues received by the patient, the paraphernalia and settings in which the treatment takes place, the ritual symbols and interactions present in each therapeutic encounter, the emotional and cognitive engagement and clinical interactions, including empathic and intimate witnessing, touching and laying on of hands, and non judgmental interactions with the patient's beliefs. Sham treatments are not going to shrink tumors or cure viruses, Kapchuk says, but disregarding placebos, quote, ignores a huge chunk of healthcare. Whatever protocol is used, alternative, orthodox, complementary, unproven, the practitioner has a significant effect on the outcome. 44% of those told that a drug causes erectile dysfunction experienced erectile dysfunction after taking a placebo labeled as that drug. Patients with irritable bowels, IBS, who receive fake acupuncture plus 20 minutes of focused personal attention, including a light touch, and information about the treatment's success, have the greatest relief. Patients with IBS who know their pills are placebos still report twice as much symptom relief or about as much improvement as the best drugs can provide as the non-treatment group. Placebo medicine rarely changes the underlying pathology of a disease. Its effect is primarily on our relationship to our symptoms, on our subjective view of health. Placebo medicine helps us heal the split between how we wish to be and how we actually are. The placebo effect is magnified when both the patient and the practitioner believe that the remedy will work. This is why the best scientific studies are double blinded, so that neither the patient nor the practitioner knows what the patient is taking. In one of the most famous double blind experiments of placebos, they labeled the ipecac. Anybody know what ipecac is? What does ipecac do? It makes you puke. Okay, so they labeled ipecac as the world's best anti-nausea drug. And they sold these professionally labeled bottles of ipecac they gave them to drug salesmen. They didn't sell them. They gave them to drug salesmen and said, this is a new drug that absolutely stops nausea and vomiting in all patients. And so the drug salesman went out and gave these samples of this new drug, it was really Ipecac, that stops vomiting and nausea in all patients to doctors who gave it to their patients. And guess what? The vast majority of the patients taking Ipecac reported relief from nausea and vomiting. This is how strong the placebo effect is, and it works both ways. Patients who receive a placebo and are told we are giving you a placebo still have as much response as patients who don't know they're getting a placebo. So we don't have to pull the wool over anybody's eyes, right? Ideally, a placebo costs little or nothing and is easily accessible. Water and lactose, the substances most commonly used in placebos, certainly fulfill these requirements. Here we have water, right? These are all placebos. Every flower essence in the world is a placebo, right? They are water. That's it. They are water with intention. Now, you can buy them or you can make them. How do you make a flower essence? You can either imagine the flower, or you can actually have the flower, or you can choose a quality. I have a big gripe about flower essences because what are flowers? What do flowers do? Flowers are the sexual reproductive parts of plants. Now, suppose that I had someone soak their sexual parts in water overnight, and then I bottled that up. And I sold it to you. Can you read a few of these labels here on these flower essences? Right? They're for world peace and harmony and bliss, right? 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 So most of the time you're only getting somebody's imagination. You're not getting really anything from that flower. A flower essence is for let me screw the world. Right? That's what flower essences are. But you can make anything a placebo. You can go home, put some water in a colored bottle, and say, this is for world peace. And guess what? It is. And it's more vital and it's more important than anything you can buy. All right? Because that's how placebos work. All right? The little white homeopathic pills are lactose. Flower essences are water. Placebo medicine is dangerous, according to Dr. Harriet Hall, retired family physician, because there can be a discrepancy between objective and subjective results. If the patient's function is worse, but the placebo makes them feel better, that's unsafe.
Flowerpower.net. Come and visit.
Rituals and drugs use the very same biochemical pathways to influence the patient's brain, says
But it's a real store.
Benedetti. Another
469th
downside to placebo
New
medicine
York
is
City.
called the nocebo
in the
effect,
village.
the ability of an inert substance to harm. Nocebo is Latin for I shall harm, where placebo is Latin for I shall please. Nocebo effects are seen in the hippocampus. Up to a quarter of those getting placebos in drug trials experience nocebo effects, usually headaches, nausea, insomnia, pain, and fatigue. One depressed person, in fact, was almost successful in committing suicide by taking the placebo pills he had been given as part of the study. So look into the work that Ted Kapchuk is doing on placebos, right? Think about what you're using as energy medicine. One of the other goals that I have in this book is to help people see that they need to move on. Um, Energy medicine, right? I call it mind medicine, is a very large group of practices, and it is pretty easy to get yourself lost, right? When we are talking about mind medicine, we are
Let's see the cover of the book again, okay?
okay. When we're talking about mind
Susan Weed's
medicine, we
Abundantly Well, everyone,
are
just published.
imagining health.
Okay, go ahead.
We enter the shaman's playground. We embrace our unique life. We symbolize our intentions. We engage the energy and we trust the invisible. This includes prayer, right? Faith healing, soul retrieval, amulets, talismans, unfathomable certainties, abiding hope, distant healing, guides, guardians, rituals, spells, candle magic, animal allies, miracles, green allies, homeopathic remedies, gemstones, elixirs, tissue salts, Bach flower essences, Willard Wonder Water, acupuncture, flower essences, word medicine, past life regression, art therapy, affirmation, trance, color healing, visualization, hypnosis, mandalas, shamanic healing, chakra therapy, therapeutic touch, auric healing, Feldenkrais, crystal healing, network chiropractic, Reiki, medicine wheels, ley lines, Rosa method, Qigong, psychic healing, polarity therapy, Feng Shui, nature spirits, mudras, Marielle work, mantras, zero balancing, and breath release, energy transformation healing. And that's not a complete list, but that's what I could fit into one page. So it is very easy for people to enter the shaman's playground, try out one thing and say that didn't work, and then try another, and say that didn't work, and then try another and say that didn't work. And that can indeed be dangerous to your health. So what we want to do is to understand what energy medicine is, give it a good trial, and if it doesn't work, move on. We want to move on from our mind medicine into the next medicine, which is lifestyle medicine. We don't want to keep going around and around and around in that arena. And that can happen in any one of these arenas, but it's most common in mind medicine because we have what I call faith medicine, placebo medicine, intention medicine, and energy medicine. Just mind medicine itself covers four very distinct ways of working with our minds. But we do not want to be like the couple in Woodstock who called me up and said, the doctors want to take our child away from us because our child was running 103 to 104-degree fever, and we gave our child a homeopathic remedy. And I said, and why do the authorities want to take your child away from you? They said, because we gave our child this homeopathic remedy for 2 weeks.
Oh, God.
Right. Set a time limit. Whatever medicine we're in, we're going to set a time limit. 103, 104-degree fever, 2 weeks is not a reasonable time limit. 2 days is a more reasonable time limit. You try energy medicine, it doesn't work. You go on to lifestyle medicine, it doesn't work. You go on to alternative medicine, it doesn't work. You go on to drug medicine, right? You got to be willing to keep stepping yourself up through the medicines if your time limit is met and if you have not been successful. Now, if your time limit is met and you haven't been successful, but you think you're going to be successful, you could extend it. But this is why I've included these warning voices. That we can't just say, mind medicine will cure everything. My mind, it won't always. And Ted Kapchak is very clear about it. It's not going to kill a virus or get rid of a tumor, but it's going to make you feel a lot better while you're getting rid of that tumor. And I kind of put in rather tongue in cheek what this woman said, that it was dangerous because if you feel better about yourself when in fact you're not better, that's a dangerous situation. I don't necessarily think that is, unless it is preventing you from seeking treatment. Um, and of course, like this couple who gave their child the homeopathic remedy, they delayed seeking treatment until it was almost too late, and everybody was very upset about that. So we have to ask ourselves each time: is my time limit a reasonable time limit? I first encountered this idea of really setting strong time limits when I was doing research for breast cancer, question mark, breast health, exclamation point. And all the oncologists that I interviewed said, well, once you have a diagnosis, you have at least 6 weeks before you have to make a decision. And I thought, really? Isn't that interesting? So many people get a diagnosis and are told, you have to go into treatment tomorrow. And here's all these oncologists saying, give yourself 6 weeks. You can set that time limit. That's a reasonable time limit. It's a very rare situation when rushing into treatment is going to save your life or improve your outcome.